Welcome to Real People, Real Voices. I'm James Jackson.
And I'm Pastor Wayne Moore.
Always a pleasure to host with you.
It is, man.
Elbow in. We do it both of them. There we go.
We just started something new in the city.
There we go. Yeah, just elbow and
elbow and
bump.
fish. Yeah, we just started something new. Yeah, we do that though.
Yeah, we've done a lot of new things over the years. We've been doing the show.
Yeah, we have, and we're still here, and it's just a blessing to be here and to share with the community. Our sponsors who've been with us. We're gonna let our producer do that when he comes, but they're here. But man, I'm excited about this show. And the reason why I'm excited about this show, I mean, we've had some tremendous things take place in the community as it relates to over pretty close to 300,000 people being helped.
Yeah.
And we have a gentleman on the show that was very instrumental in getting that done. However it happened, many might not agree with how it happened, but it happened, and it services humanity. And that's what we're supposed to do as believers, service humanity.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and certainly the Concerned Clergy,
yes,
the leading organization on that effort, is represented here today in collaboration with some other organizations. So before we get to that, though, we want to encourage you to go to YouTube, WHMB TV 40 on YouTube. You can watch this show when it's over as well as others that you might have missed. You can go all the way back to the first show, and be sure to click the notification button.
That's it.
So you'll know when we're on. Subscribe and
like us on Facebook. We're there waiting on you.
Yeah.
To chime in and fellowship with us here at Real People, Real Voices.
And follow us on Facebook. We need your help to make this show even more successful than it already is. Stay
Christian
with us.
and community oriented. That's what it's all about.
Faith-based.
Faith-based, yeah, it is.
Doing God's work.
Yes, sir.
We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. We're joined by Dr. David Green, Concerned Clergy President, 2015. Has it been that long?
Time has been flying, Pastor Jackson. So good to see you.
Likewise, yeah. And I was certainly a great supporter of Concerned Clergy years before that. And then I started in school and couldn't get there on Saturdays because we had class. Looking forward to when in-person meetings start back up. Any plans for that?
We don't have any immediate plans for it for at least this calendar year. You know, COVID's still, here.
Yeah.
The Delta variant is here, so we don't have any immediate plans. But when possible, we'll definitely get back.
Yeah, exciting meetings.
Definitely. Spirited meetings is a part of it.
Spirited is probably a better way to say it.
Definitely.
But one of the things we're here to talk about is the unemployment lawsuit. Most folks are aware that the state of Indiana was one of the first states that dropped those benefits, and then subsequently the Concerned Clergy and others filed a lawsuit. So what precipitated that action?
Well, we were really thinking about the disenfranchised of our community, looking at Hoosiers across the entire state of Indiana, that the federal government said these dollars should go until September. And we felt like it was not lacking in compassion to say we're just going to lift this out by the governor. And so we partnered with Indiana Legal Services, the Baptist Ministers Alliance, the National Action Network of Indiana were all part of the lawsuit to say, hey, we really need to step up and represent those who are most in need.
You know, and I'd like to say in context that really it's a historical move. There has been no faith-based organization that has moved this aggressively to help the entire state of Indiana, not just Marion County, but the entire state of Indiana, almost over closer to 300,000 than it is 200,000, if you know what I mean. And it's historical. It's very, and I want to commend you publicly, and right here on this show, for making that happen and letting God use you to help almost 300,000 people who would now not have their unemployment benefits Now they're able to maybe pay their rent, pay child support, child daycare, do a lot of things they would not have been able to do without those resources. The argument was, Dr. Green, was that if we take that away, maybe people will go back to work. How did you see that?
Well, I was able to hear from a lot of different people in different perspectives in life and where they are in terms of unemployment. Most of the people I talk to want to work, were working prior to COVID-19. They're looking at situations where maybe they have a pre-existing condition, so they don't necessarily want to go back to the same job that they had before. So they're pursuing other options, getting their skills up and participating in various trainings to pursue a different career path. And I mean, I understand what the governor is saying, and many times they're trying to, we want people, most of these were low-end wage jobs that they want back in a restaurant, back in a hotel, et cetera. You have to keep in mind, a lot of times they weren't going to be paid 40 hours. These people were going to make, 25 hours, enough to be off of unemployment, but not enough to pay their existing bills, et cetera. So the timing of reopening, the state of Indiana, if you will, the timing of building the business is crucial and critical to when you say you want people to come back to work. They do want to work. If they lose their benefits, though, they got to be somewhere like they were prior to COVID, which means closer to full time, not more towards, oh yeah, they got a job and it's part-time. There's a difference between 25 hours and 40 hours. I think the real issue, and I'm hoping that it gets picked up by the governor and others, we need a livable wage in the state of Indiana. The state of Indiana has the lowest minimum wage of all of our states. We need to elevate the wages so that people will say, oh yeah, I don't have a problem working. They got to make it where they can pay their bills and not end up, well, I got to work and I don't know where my kids are going to be. And by the way, I'm not making 40 hours. I'm not getting paid 40 hours for this job. I'm making just enough to be off of my benefit package, but not enough to live on. And there are people that clearly fall in that area.
I think this ought to arrest the General Assembly now as it relates to creating the $18 to $20 livable wage now. There ought to be something hit that floor this year, in the coming year, that will help people to understand that I don't mind working, but I want to be able to take care of my family. I want to be able to live in a decent house or apartment, have transportation, be able to pay child care, et cetera. I want to meet those demands on my life as it relates to my necessities. But at the same time, a lot of people don't look at it that way. They feel that is pressing upon businesses. I don't think so, because every restaurant that I've been in, prices have went up on the menu at alarming rates. And so all I'm saying is I'm just grateful that these individuals are going to get those dollars. For how long, we don't know. Till September, hopefully, because that's when it expires.
And that's the piece that was most shocking, that the federal benefit was going to go away in the month of September anyway. So why start 3 months out saying, okay, we're going to cut it off, allow it to play out to September. That was going to give these businesses that have opened up more time to get up to speed, where hopefully they, can pay people 40 hours a week and we can continue to grow. But it's still, the conversation on the back end of this is, what does a new minimum wage or livable wage look like for the state of Indiana? We've not addressed that issue now for decades, and it's time to have that real conversation as we look to go forward as a state.
Have you all been talking to any of the state legislators, and what are they saying about what you are proposing?
Well, we are definitely pushing our state legislators to have the boldness and willingness to present this to the entire body. We have hopes that will happen, but certainly no guarantees, Pastor Jackson. We're just hoping that the pressure, what they're seeing, experiencing, will say, we need to address this. It has been definitely noted, and they're definitely aware of where we rank in terms of minimum wage, that the fact that it hasn't been talked about. They'll have to balance that between the need of Hoosiers, many of our Hoosiers, and business interests, because it's the businesses that want to say, hey, obviously if you're in a business, you want employees as cheap as possible. You can make more on your bottom line. However, that's not necessarily good for the overall, and we need people looking at the big picture and not in their little silo of the personal money they're going to make.
All right, well, we have more coming from Dr. David Green, and I want you to stay with us. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. We're joined by Dr. David Green, president of the Concerned Clergy, historic faith-based, clergy-led organization in the city of Indianapolis. There is a reality to businesses that are suffering from having enough workers to keep going. And the Bible says there's safety in the multitude of counselors. How would you have counseled the governor on this issue if they had come to you before making that decision?
I would have said, let's play it out to September, but we need to get the business entities in the same room and saying, you know, I understand everybody's got to make a profit. That's how you stay in business. Let's balance that with what we're going to have to do in terms of payment to people, in terms of what their salaries need to be. Because to be the lowest in the country in minimum wage, that means a lot of good people leave the state. If you live near the border of our state, why would you work in Indiana if you could just cross over to Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and make a lot more money? We need to lift the whole entire state. So what the multitude of counsel would be, let's come into the same room and say, this is what we're going to have to do in order for Indiana to really prosper as a whole. We want our businesses to stay in business and to be successful, but you can't do it at the expense of poor and working people. Then that creates another problem, if you will. In my opinion, when you look at economics, you can't look at it in its individual silo, because once we start down this slope of, you know, we're not going to pay people properly, then that leads to evictions. That leads to potential public safety issues in terms of people saying, I got to do what I got to do to make it. It does away with instilling hope in some individuals that they can go and work an honest job, which is what we want them to do, and be able to provide for their families, have reasonable housing, have reasonable transportation. Nothing extravagant. The numbers show that you need to make about $18 an hour, you know, especially in the urban parts of Indiana, to make it. And if you're paying them $8 an hour, they're a long way from that 18. And that's the piece that needs to be addressed. And I think it would have been wise to bring a number of parties together to say, this is why this is the right thing to do. This is how you're going to benefit. Because I think you can make it a win-win for everybody.
Shifting the data, that's what you wanted. You wanted the data to shift. And it seems like our state is kind of difficult in shifting data. Especially when you're sitting on a $3 billion surplus, you know, it's kind of difficult to shift that data. Another instance that you've been working on is the IU systematic racism issue. Tell us how the progress, if you could, is going with that particular situation. And may Sister and Dr. Susan Moore rest in peace. She was the one that brought all of this, I think, to the forefront.
Well, we're looking at, regarding Dr. Susan Moore, certainly our prayers go out to the entire family and the tragedy that took place. We're looking at the racism that exists across the healthcare systems. I mean, we've just come through COVID-19. We see these disparities. The disparities existed prior to COVID-19. They're existing now
At alarming rates.
At alarming rates. And I would like to see our healthcare systems begin to truly address those issues that have been there for decades now so that we all have a healthier community, especially those that are minorities. And in order to do that, there's more to it than lip service. There's more to it than we're going to do some diversity training, because many organizations have been doing diversity training for decades now. You have to put your actions behind just your words. And when I say actions, that means resources. And that means, being committed to addressing disparity issues and having a clear strategy that involves being intentional to come and say, we're going to tackle this. We're going to tackle this issue. It's easy to say, oh, yeah, there's a problem, and we're going to study it, we're going to analyze it, and then we get caught up in what I call the paralysis of analysis, and then nothing truly happens to benefit or tackle the issue. We just did paralysis of analysis. We're going to hire a consultant, Pastor Jackson. The consultant's going to come in and many times tell us what we already know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like a lot of that happens in the city.
It seems to be a method that goes on in a lot of different places. As we sit back, pastors been pastoring numerous years, you can probably sit back and say, I've seen this before. Mm-hmm. And we hear it, and then we do that until the next crisis. Then we say, oh, we should do something about it, so let's study that again.
Well, I haven't been all over the country, but I've looked at some of the diversity studies in other places. Some people take diversity very serious, and they put legs to it. They put dollars behind it. Diversity, as it relates to the state of Indiana, I mean, it is just it's just a word. It's just a word or something utilized that does not get much attention as it relates to action. And the governor made an appointment with a young lady, inclusion officer, and which is supposed to help address those particular issues. I don't know how far that's gotten, but at least it's there, and hopefully it will get to the place to where it becomes instrumental to the state of Indiana and then local cities and counties as well.
But Pastor Moore, I would add, if we're going to address diversity, inclusion, equity, it cannot reside in just a person. It has to reside throughout an organization, so that diversity is not just at the bottom of the organization. Diversity needs to be throughout the organization. It has to be woven into the fabric of who the organization is, what the organization is. And that means it's not in one person. It has to be in all those other managers and supervisors who are hiring people, not just in somebody who happens to have an office over in a corner somewhere who can ensure that there's diversity on the newsletter. We need diversity throughout the organization. And that's the challenge that these organizations have. Are you willing to change? It starts with the boards of these organizations. It starts with top leadership in these organizations. And you can't get there without being intentional, because many of these positions are locked up, if you will, with who's in place right now. So it's easy to say, well, we're going to address our board, over the next 5 or 10 years and eventually get more diversity to it. Well, that's too long. It doesn't have to be that way. If you got a board of 10, you can be intentional and say, we're going to have a board of 15 and we're getting ready to bring on 5 minorities. And that's intentionality, not saying, oh, we got a board of 10. We're going to look at that as their terms expire and we'll consider diversity then. If you do that, it's going to take you 5 or 10 years to change.
And I will say that the governor is making some steps in that direction. You mentioned the hiring of the young lady, but there's also some other things that I've been a part of, as well as some other individuals, where they're trying to be more diverse. So I hope that will continue to gain momentum, and then in 3 to 5 years when we come back, we'll see what you're saying, where we have a lot more people on these boards, and some of these boards pay, and unfortunately you don't see a lot of minorities in a lot of these positions. So hopefully we'll see some momentum and it'll be a change.
I know they do a disparity study every 5 years. We're hoping that we begin to truly see results, that we don't come to the next 5 years and say, oh yeah, we still got a problem. Because we need to break that cycle of we do the right things. There's a study, we put things in place, but we never see the end results of that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that, like you are, Pastor Jackson, we're going to see some changes here.
All right. Well, all the best to the Concerned Clergy. It's a great organization. We're out of time for this for now, but we'll be back with the rundown. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm James Jackson.
I'm Pastor Wayne Moore.
And I'm Curtis Baker, your producer of Real People, Real Voices.
Tell us about our sponsor before we get
Our
started.
sponsors are Tamiko and Associates Realty Group, Martin University, Marion County Public Health Department, Lee Castle and Crawley, Owls Modern Clothing and Shoes, Northwest Side Window and Gutter Cleaning, Furbert Care Christian Academy, and of course, His Place Eatery, which I owe you.
Yeah, we're okay, man. Everything's cool, man.
He owes us all lunch.
Yeah, he does. He really does. Man, let me tell you, that was an exceptional moment of information to hear that as some, however look at it, but to see people have an opportunity to survive through this pandemic with this unemployment, I thought it was historical for communities and those who are going to receive it. People might not have thought it was the right way, but it was the best way because as we speak, it's happening. And people are needs are being met. For how long? September. After that, then we'll have to see.
Well, you know, lots going on with COVID-19, with the Delta variant, and getting people back to work is not an easy task.
No.
You mentioned the rainy day money. I'm not sure, you know, what the restrictions are on the use of that, but perhaps some of that money could have been used to sustain or supplement the businesses or people who could go back to work. Maybe some of that money could have augmented their pay. or
Great
something
point.
like that.
I think it's a great point that you make that type of point. We're sitting on it. We have it, pretty close to $3 billion in that particular situation. It just takes the supermajority to make some decisions to make those type of things happen. It's a process, but it can happen.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Moore, I want to commend you because I know you were part of that process
Yes.
of getting that extended, took it to the Supreme Court.
Yes, it's
They
there
had it
now.
done. I'm glad that happened. You know, and it's the fact that you are part of this show and those things are making waves in this community. I feel really blessed to have you guys, both of you, because you really do a lot of good things in this community.
All right. Well, thank you. And sounds like our time is up.
I'm like, that's
We'll
new.
see you next time.
On this Real People, Real Voices.